where every dream of flying high can be grounded by a prejudiced glance. Dawn breaks. Peachwood Regional Airport, Georgia is still groggy, but Loretta Jenkins is not. She strides into the main hall, confidently carrying a cream-colored tote bag, reading Black Girl Magic, wearing a caramel hoodie, neatly tied hair, fresh slip-on shoes, and holding a woke brew coffee cup, tilted as if challenging the entire system. Her destination, New York seat, 1A. Ticket class, first class bold italicized, and a direct affront to every prejudice. Loretta isn't dragging a suitcase. No noise-canceling headphones, no light gray suit, with a fluttering silk scarf like other VIP passengers lined up at the priority counter, but her phone screen clearly displays Boarding Group 1. First class seat 1A. She approaches the priority lane with just enough confidence not to seem boastful, but not enough to be spared. And as per the classic script, Chad, a white check-in staffer with side-parted hair and a smile straight out of a 90s toothpaste, stops her with a quintessential Georgia-flavored line. "Ma, this line is for first class and diamond members." Loretta doesn't frown or overreact. She simply presents her phone, its screen lighting up like a logical slap to a prejudiced mindset. "Yes, that's me. Here's my ticket." Chad squints at the QR code, checking it thrice as if deciphering quantum equations, then reluctantly beeps her through. "All right. Thank you, Ma. Have a pleasant flight." His voice is flat, lifeless, as if he'd just ceded his seat to a crowned cat. Right behind Loretta is a white man in a crumpled hoodie, dragging a suitcase on the verge of bursting. Chad spots him, eyes lighting up as if seeing an old friend, and waves him through without checking his ticket, without questions, only lacking a red carpet. Loretta walks past the gate, unsurprised. She's used to this. But what she doesn't know, this time they don't just plan to ignore her. They plan to eject her from first class and handcuff her. Barely 10 minutes after leaving the check-in counter, Loretta faces the system's first cold splash. "Ma, please step to the right for a random screening." The speaker, a TSA officer balding on one side, wearing indoor sunglasses, name tag reading Ronald J. McTrigger, a name that screams prejudice. Loretta doesn't argue. She shrugs, as if receiving the airport's traditional buffet. A bag, check, a body scan, topped with a dessert of suspicious glances. Ronald eyes her tote bag as if it contains a federal warrant. "Ma, can you explain what this is?" he asks, pulling out a stack of documents. "Legal papers. I'm a financial consultant," Loretta replies curtly, not even looking up. "You a lawyer?" He probes further, flipping through as if searching for coupons in a Target magazine. "Not exactly, but when necessary, I can have someone lose their job within 48 hours. Her tone isn't threatening, just a gentle reminder, like caffeinated herbal tea. After failing to find any contraband miniature microwave or signs of treason in Loretta's bag, Ronald nodded. "All right, May. You're free. Free to go. Just try not to give people the wrong impression. Next time, a sentence missing only 2 words because you were black to perfectly complete its original intent." Loretta walked away in silence, but her ears still caught the whispers behind her. "Doesn't really look like first class." "Huh. Yeah, probably one of those community assistance program tickets." She didn't look back, because people like her, with skin like hers, style like hers, are expected to keep moving without getting angry, endure without fighting back, and remain patient without ever tiring. But this time, Loretta didn't just keep moving. She remembered, and the worn-out tote bag on her shoulder turned out to carry more than just documents. It carried patience that had reached its limit. Loretta approached the boarding gate with exactly 3 things in hand: a phone displaying her QR code for boarding group 1, a first-class ticket seat 2A, and a tote bag that had survived 3 economic recessions and 1 accidental hot wash. But her confidence was soon challenged by Gwen, the check-in attendant, with blonde corkscrew curls worthy of a county pageant and a voice sharp enough to double as a fire alarm. "Hi there. Just so you know, this is the priority boarding line for business class passengers." Loretta held up her ticket. "I know. I also know what you are thinking." "Oh, no, not at all." Gwen laughed stiffer than expired mayonnaise. "It's just, are you sure you're not at the wrong train station?" As Loretta stepped through the gate, there was a distinct click behind her. Not the sound of a cookie wrapper, but Gwen pressing the internal alert. On the system, a note appeared. "Passenger does not match the first-class image. Recommend observation." Loretta heard it. But instead of reacting, she simply smiled. Because there is nothing more dangerous than a black woman smiling while being insulted. Behind her, a white man in sweatpants and flip-flops carrying a bucket of KFC that practically perfumed the terminal waltzed into first class. Without a single question, Gwen beamed at him like reuniting with a rich ex. In that moment, Loretta realized, here, the definition of deserving service wasn't printed on a boarding pass. It was printed on skin. But she kept walking. Seat 2A was waiting, and Gwen had just unknowingly written a giant minus sign into her personnel file. When Loretta finally settled into seat 2A, the glossy leather seat wider than an Airbnb room in Brooklyn flight attendant, Roxy appeared wearing a smile thinner than a sheet of oil blotting paper. "Excuse me, I believe there may be a mix-up with this seat." Loretta, already buckled in, raised her ticket casually. "If there's a mix-up, it's on your system. I bought this seat with money, not a school lunch voucher." Roxy froze, as if facing a system crash. She turned around and whispered into her radio, "Bird is in the nest. Repeat, the brown bird has landed in a white seat." Less than 3 minutes later, a figure stepped into the cabin like he'd walked off a spin-off episode of CSI Minor Transit Crimes Officer Chad Timberlake, Airport Security. With sunglasses the size of frying pans and a lopsided walk from only working out his upper body, Chad marched straight to Loretta. "Ma, I need you to vacate this seat." "We've received a report of non-compliance." Loretta didn't move. "Non-compliance? Did I use the wrong hand for my butter knife?" Chad tilted his head seriously. "No, you are sitting in the wrong category." The entire first-class cabin fell into a stiff silence. The man in seat 2B, halfway through ordering a glass of wine, turned away like Loretta had become invisible. Loretta chuckled, but it was the kind of laugh that would trigger the system's low-grade neurological disturbance alert. Chad pulled out his handcuffs. "You are refusing to cooperate. I am authorized to use force." "Enforce? What exactly?" Loretta raised an eyebrow. "A woman sitting in the correct seat on the correct flight with the correct ticket, but the wrong color." Before any rebuttal could arrive, a loud click sounded. Loretta's wrists, fresh from a gel manicure the day before, were neatly cuffed behind her back. The plane hadn't taken off, but humanity had already crashed. As Loretta was escorted off the aircraft, A passenger whispered to the person next to them, "She probably faked her ticket. Doesn't really look first class." Meanwhile, on the airport screens, Flight 327 destination Chicago still showed the status, "On time." Yep, justice was just running late. The flight itself still on schedule. Loretta was taken into a room so white if someone wore scrubs, no one would know if it was a person or a wall. Above, a blinking camera hovered like it was preparing to shoot a new music video. But no, this was the low-budget version of Silent Lawyer. Across from her sat Inspector Marlene Dobbins, a white woman in a gray suit, hair curled like a faulty electrical socket, with a face so stern it looked like Loretta had just leaked nuclear codes instead of buying the correct airline ticket. "Mrs. Loretta Dawson, correct. We've received a report that you were disruptive on board." Loretta nodded, lifting her still reddened wrists from the cuffs. "Oh yes, I was disruptive by wearing headphones and reading quietly. Did you refuse to comply with crew instructions when asked to relocate?" "Oh, absolutely. I refused very politely and didn't kick anyone. I simply said, I bought this seat with my credit card and my tears, and I'm sitting right here. Does that count as rebellion?" Marlene didn't smile. She took notes, like she was investigating espionage, not a black woman with comfy airport fashion. "The crew reported you as not aligned with the image of a premium passenger. So because I'm not wearing Chanel, and I don't cross my legs like a French actress, it's handcuff time." At that moment, Officer Chad walked in from behind the camera, still wearing his leather gloves. Eyes filled with, "I'm more used to breaking up bar fights than detaining grandmas on flights." He sat down and tossed out, "If you had just cooperated, this wouldn't have happened." Loretta looked at them both. "Oh, right, I forgot. Cooperation here means shut up, nod and vacate your legal seat the moment a white passenger gets uncomfortable." The air in the room suddenly chilled, or maybe that was just the AC turned up to test the nervous system of people of color. Marlene flipped open a folder. "We'll need you to sign this statement. Acknowledgement of inappropriate behavior in flight conditions." Loretta leaned her elbows on the table, smiling sweet as a lollipop. "Sure, I'll sign, but I'll be adding inappropriate because I'm not white, not wearing a suit, and not carrying Gucci. Is there space for notes?" The room fell silent. Chad scratched his head. Marlene blinked like her software just froze. In Loretta's mind, one thought floated. Do they even realize? "I'm a Federal Passenger Services Oversight Commissioner." But she let it go. Not yet, because the real document she brought still sat quietly in the red envelope tucked inside her bulldog print tote. "And Don T. Worry. Later. They'll all find out who really deserved to be interrogated." As Marlene reached for a pen, Loretta, still composed and fabulously unapologetic, slid the document back, and with her other hand pulled from her bulldog tote a thin red envelope, one light enough to flutter, but heavy enough to make the entire system break a sweat. "Before I sign, I think you'll want to take a look at this. Don T. Worry. It's not a meme." The envelope opened like a slow-motion scene in a documentary about seismic events. Inside was a document embossed with a national seal and a single line of text, Federal Passenger Services Commission, Emergency Oversight Authority, Government Mandate. Marlene blinked. Chad, who had been standing with his legs apart like waiting for a penalty kick, now looked like he'd just found out. He accidentally deleted his TikTok account with 1 million followers. Loretta spoke slowly. "I'm not a lawyer. I'm the person assigned to anonymously evaluate passenger service equity on premium routes. 2 flights are audited each year. And congratulations, you've just won the championship. Best in racial discrimination, under LED lighting. And you? She turned to Chad. I'm debating whether to label your handcuffing me over a hoodie as abuse of power or a career digging its own grave. Chad was sweating, still trying to hold his ground. I was just following protocol. Loretta cut him off with a smile sweeter than syrup. Oh, the protocol. That says, if it's a white person dressed sloppy, first class. If it's a black person dressed neat, call the TSA. That one, Marlene, was now pale as the wall. She clasped her hands together like preparing to enter a monastery. Ms. Dawson, I apologize if there was any misunderstanding. Loretta raised an eyebrow. Are you apologizing to me, or apologizing for not realizing I was important sooner? No one said a word. She stood up, walked over to the whiteboard, where a poster read, "We serve with fairness and compassion." She pulled the sign down, folded it in quarters, and stuffed it into her tote. I'll send this back as an example for my collection called Values that hang on walls but have no legs. It's quite full already. Before leaving the room, she turned back. Oh, and I still want my water and hot towel from flight attendant Roxy. Next time, maybe serve it before the customer has to ask. Or before she is cuffed for having the wrong skin tone. Marlene opened her mouth to speak, but Loretta had already pulled out her phone and launched the Internal Oversight app. A single command flashed across the screen. Initiate full flight audit gate to cabin. The screen lit up. Marlene turned white. Chad sat down and exhaled like someone who just got fired by eye contact. Loretta walked out of the room, leaving behind a system groaning in silent panic. And that was just the prelude. Less than 15 minutes after Loretta exited the security gate at Liberty Terminal, C started to lag. Customs officers couldn't scan boarding passes. The boarding pass printers began spitting out tickets that read, "Pending HR review," instead of passenger names. A traveler grumbled, "I am late for a meeting," and the machine responded in a monotone female voice, "You are late. For justice." The airport's entire system was rerouted. Flight display boards flickered, showing no names. Just the message, Flight Equity Protocol, active seat, 1A to 9C under audit. Suspicious behavior detected. Welfare jokes, unverified downgrade request. Roxy, the flight attendant, once cold as an Alaskan glacier, was folding napkins in first class when she got summoned via a single-line message. HR wants a word. Bring your radio log. Before she could even react, a young female colleague whispered, "I heard the server extracted the clip where you said, 'This is first class, not a food stamp program. It's streaming live.'" In the Genesis boardroom, Roxy froze like a wax figure. Meanwhile, Grant, the lead flight attendant, was being pinged by the audit bot for the third time, unable to justify his reason for asking Loretta to change seats. He started, I thought she was using a friend's membership card." His excuse was cut short by a loudspeaker announcement echoing through the VIP lounge. "Attention all crew members on Flight 304 have been placed under emergency compliance review. Passenger Loretta Dawson has been confirmed as a federal F4 tier oversight agent. All service actions will now undergo independent audit." The nearby passengers, those who had been pretending to be busy tying their shoelaces, suddenly sat up straight, cautiously glancing at one another, as if they had just realized They were part of an episode of Black Mirror and Loretta. She was sitting in the VIP lounge, her dog named Biscuit, a bulldog in a tiny hoodie, and Sunglasses sat beside her, licking a yogurt cup like he was savoring the taste of karma being served. A senior staff member entered, visibly shaking Ms. Dawson. Genesis Holdings has just officially requested a deep audit. And, apparently, the CEO just called the Department of Transportation. Loretta didn't even look up. She just turned to Biscuit. Did you hear that Mommy didn't even need to do anything, and the system already exposed its own wires? Time to give them a cold shower. She opened her laptop and typed a single line into Genesis' reporting system. Preliminary conclusion. Racism doesn't live in the policy. It lives in the glance. And the glance has been recorded. She hit send. The screen blinks blue. No one had been fired yet, but the whole team literally started shaking in their seats. That very afternoon, the executive office of Skylift Airlines, which usually only discussed French wines and first-class ticket pricing, plunged into emergency mode, as if a meteor were about to strike Seat 2B. On the big screen, a notification from Genesis Holdings flashed. Activate Mode Audit Override. Auth Code L. Dawson F4. All cabin video, internal audio service logs, and flight attendant positioning data were instantly recalled to an external server. Before anyone could ask who triggered this mode, a trembling assistant muttered, that code. It belongs to Ms. Loretta Dawson. One executive paled, the one in the gray hoodie and Converse sneakers, the one who got handcuffed because they didn't think she belonged in first class. No one responded, because just then a red USB drive arrived via courier, carefully packaged with a handwritten note. Auto-extracted data, encrypted, does not bother deleting, just read carefully. Signed LD. Meanwhile, on the 12th floor, Discipline and HR Department, Roxy Gable, the one who once whistled the welfare program, sat frozen watching footage of herself. Speaking with smug confidence, Grant, the lead flight attendant, was reassigned to temporarily transferred to the Denver-Tulsa route, essentially exiled by aircraft. Vince, the gate agent from C-14, received an audio log containing the quote, "She probably used a subsidized ticket." On the desk, a memo was distributed to every department with the following content. All behavior related to passenger Loretta Dawson is under preliminary investigation for Tier 2 racial bias. All statements are being cross-checked against AI-enabled camera footage. One department head tried to counter, but she didn't look like our usual frequent flyer profile. The auditor from Genesis tapped the table. That is exactly your problem. As for Loretta, she didn't attend a single meeting. She simply submitted an 11-page petition, which included an analysis of exclusionary behavior based on appearance, time-stamped logs who was served when body language of the crew, and finally a single sentence on the last page. I don't need compensation. I need structure. Biscuit. The dog sitting in the seat beside her seemed very pleased. He flicked his ears and licked strawberry jam like he was saying, "You messed with the wrong woman." And her dog. At the same moment, a young flight attendant named Kenya, who had witnessed everything on the flight but remained silent quietly, sent an internal email to Genesis. The content was a single line. I stayed silent, but I saw everything. And Loretta, the woman who had never once raised her voice, became the spark for a structural overhaul of the airline industry. 3 days after the Loretta Dawson incident, Skylift Airlines headquarters was once proud of its motto, 5-star service. Just not for you. The entire executive board entered a state of temporarily forgetting how to breathe. On the 14th floor, Human Resources Department, Roxy Gable, former first-class lead attendant, was reassigned as Emergency Exit Gate Guide, new duty. Hold a sign that reads, "Exit is this way," and say nothing that might go viral. Grant Holloway, former lead steward of the Paris-New York route, was transferred to the Dallas-Omaha circuit, with a new mission: enhance the domestic passenger experience. Without requiring hot towels, Grant sighed as he read his updated itinerary. Denver, Tulsa, Sacramento 8-hour layover continues to Boise from serving Dom Perignon champagne, serving flat Pepsi. Welcome aboard, sir. Your seatbelt in 12B is jammed, sir. At security gate C14, Vince, the staff member who once muttered, "Looks like a welfare ticket," was now assigned to train interns in neutral customer language. His new guide sign clearly stated, "Don T. say, you Dante look like a first-class passenger. Say, please scan your boarding pass." Vince held the sign and muttered to himself, "I thought customer service language was instinct. Turns out, my instincts are outdated." In the VIP lounge, Loretta sat with a cup of jasmine tea reading a book titled The Art of Not Reacting and Still Destroying Everything beside her. Biscuit, the bulldog, chewed on an almond biscuit, one paw resting on the chair like a mini CEO. A young woman approached Kenya, the same silent flight attendant from the flight, gently placing a brown envelope on the table. Inside, a detailed report of every exclusionary behavior on the flight. A list of 3 employees who went along out of fear of losing their jobs. A shaky handwritten line. "I'm sorry. And thank you for not being silent. Like me." Loretta looked at Kenya, smiled, and nodded. The system doesn't fear anger, it fears documentation. At Genesis Holdings, HQ auditors completed 17 internal reports, triggering Clause EM41. All capital-backed companies are required to implement service exclusion audits based on race, starting from yesterday, a senior executive whispered. "We should have brought Ms. Dawson onto the board from the start." Another replied, "We should have brought Miss Dawson onto the board and not cuffed her in front of a camera." In the Skylift PR office, an emergency press release was drafted with the biggest font reading, "We apologize if any passengers felt dissatisfied." Loretta received the draft via email, skimmed it once, and filed it straight into spam. She opened her laptop and posted a message with exactly 10 words. "I don't need an apology. I need a new structure." The post garnered 4 million shares in 48 hours. While the system was still scrambling to improve its image, Loretta simply sat still. No lawsuits, no talk shows, no tearful live streams. She let the system expose itself. And behind her, Biscuit was still gnawing on his biscuit, glancing at the board of directors as if to say, "You picked the wrong woman and the wrong dog." 3 weeks after Loretta Dawson was handcuffed by police right at the plane's exit door, the Skylift Airlines leadership convened an emergency meeting on the 30th floor. A floor usually reserved for discussions about buying new aircraft or cutting one slice of cheese from a first-class deluxe meal while still calling it gourmet. In the room, the CEO sat with his head down like he'd just read a horror story. The head of legal flipped through documents as if trying to save the Titanic from sinking using administrative paperwork. In the hands of the Genesis Holdings representative was a 13-page document titled simply Internal Reform Proposal from the desk of Loretta Dawson. Not a petition, not a lawsuit. This was the kind of document that made people swallow hard, with every line, each one a slap in the face of so-called premium service culture, which in reality was just prejudice wrapped in warm towels. The proposal was divided into 3 parts: a full reassessment of all internal processes related to passenger classification, the establishment of an independent oversight mechanism not run by the airline, and the launch of a training program with a name that wasn't TPR-friendly at all. We don't just serve customers, we restore dignity. No PowerPoint slides featuring passengers with fake smiles. No role-play questions like, if a passenger makes you uncomfortable for unspeakable reasons, do you, a smile B, change their seat? C, smile and move them anyway. Instead, the sessions would begin with real audio recordings, though this was first class, not a welfare program. And for anyone still unsure, Biscuit Loretta's dog would sit at the classroom door wearing a support officer badge and stare straight into the souls of the trainees. Loretta didn't go on television. She didn't accept any speaking invitations. Instead, she wrote a single article and submitted it to Aviation Journal titled, "I Don't Need an Apology. I Need Not to Be Handcuffed for My Skin Color." The piece spread like an underground wave through the airline industry. It was printed and distributed to all employees in the retraining program. It was pinned up in HR waiting rooms like a mantra no one dared ignore. At Grand Shore Airport, where the incident occurred, Loretta's portrait was placed right at the center of the first-class check-in area. Below, it was a line of text. No fluff, no slogans. A journey does not begin with a boarding pass. It begins with the right to be seen as human. A young black boy walked by, holding tightly to his mother's hand. He stopped and asked, "Mom, who is she?" "She looks so strong." His mother bent down, squeezed his hand, and softly replied, as if passing down a piece of history, "She's the reason you won't have to ask, 'Am I allowed to sit here?'" As for Kenya, the young flight attendant, who had once remained silent when Loretta was mistreated, she was now the lead coordinator of the airline's retraining program. In every session, Kenya told the story of that day, and always ended with the same line. She didn't ask for another seat. She redrew the entire map and Loretta. She didn't accept any honorary titles. She didn't accept compensation. She didn't even acknowledge the CEO's apology letter written in Times New Roman size 14s, double-spaced. Instead, she left a short note in the company's internal training portal. "Don't build more VIP lounges. Clear out the old system. And when you train your staff, start with one question. If that person were your mother, would you serve her that way?" The flight ended, but the journey of change had only just begun. And this time, it didn't require a first-class ticket, an expensive suit, or a title. Just one black woman who was once handcuffed and stood up, not to reclaim a seat, but to make sure that no one would ever be dragged out of theirs again, just because of their skin.